Thanks for coming. This is our girls basketball panel. It doesn't necessarily have to be women. We had some guys that we also invited, but it's just going to be us four today, and I'm really excited to talk some girls basketball with you guys tonight.
That's awesome. We're happy to be here.
Great.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, let me introduce the panel. I got Coach Klippenstein, Noel Klippenstein from Westfield. I got Coach Dianne Lewis from Edison. And I got Coach Kirsten Stone from Madison. I'm Julian Brown. I've been doing these Nova Legends podcasts. I've been trying to highlight some of the stars of the Northern Virginia basketball, especially basketball, but all sports. And just started through the pandemic. Everyone was posting in a group on Facebook pictures and articles and just networking, telling stories. Out of that grew podcast. I actually started with Jim Lewis because his story was so compelling. And so it's been a lot of fun. And you never know what you never know what life is going to take you. And then the pandemic kind of took me in a podcasting path. So anyway, I'm so glad to you guys join me tonight. So I want to start by you guys introducing yourselves and kind of telling your story, where you're from, where'd you go to school, how you got into basketball, and how you ended up at the school you're at today. So why don't we start with Coach Klippenstein first?
All right. So this is my 17th year as a head coach in Fairfax County. I did 3 years at a private boarding school in Pennsylvania, nearly right out of college. And my whole life goal was that I just wanted to be able to coach basketball. I had gotten an opportunity to play college volleyball in a school that was so small that it was basically a Division IV school. And so I just kind of kept looking. And when I got this opportunity in Pennsylvania, I did 3 years. I learned everything the hard way, and then moved to Virginia. And then by complete dumb luck, my PE teaching job was matched with Christopher Keston, who passed away last year in December. But he and I have been lifelong friends. And the day that I met him, he hoisted me up, threw me in his Jeep, and had an interview with Fred Priester, who hired me to be an assistant coach. And so with that and my degree in physical education, I was starting to really live my dream. And little did I know that coaching with Fred would teach me a whole ton. I mean, I had no idea, but honestly, he's such a tough coach that if I had ever known who he was before I got the job, I wouldn't have taken the job. He's surly, he's cranky, he's demanding, nothing is ever right. And then if you get into his little circle, which somehow I have, and I can't get out of it, he's super huggable, and he's still mentoring me. He handed me a loss the other night, and then he still had good words to say. He's just that way. But with that, being in Fairfax County, there's a tremendous network of coaches, and I have loved being a coach in this community because the coaches here are competitive, but they're also normal people with normal lives, and they care about the kids, which is really probably the most important thing, even if the kids maybe don't necessarily feel it until later when they grow up a little bit more.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks, Coach. Well, Coach Lewis, you're a Titan. You played basketball there, and probably one of the first varsity teams, because I don't think girls basketball didn't really start until like the mid 70s. So you probably, I'm not trying to tell your age, but you probably were on some of those early teams, maybe even with Kathy Grimes. And so why don't you tell us about your background?
Yeah, before Kathy Grimes. My road to coaching actually is probably not like the others. I did play at TC, suffered a season-ending injury my senior year, in which I tore my ACL, my MCL, and fractured my patella.
Wow.
So that was at that time, you didn't repair that. That was it. You were done. And so while I had some schools that were recruiting me, they knew at that time that, I was done. So I kind of put basketball on the back burner. I went off to Old Dominion to go to college and was there when Nancy Lieberman was there. and got to see some of the best women's basketball, but always had that itch. And so years later, my youngest wanted to play. I was playing in a women's 30 and over league, and my youngest wanted to play, and I signed up to coach. And they literally called my house and said, "Hi, could we speak to Mr. Lewis? We understand he wants to coach." And I said, "No, I'm going to coach." And so I started coaching Little League, and then I just kept getting higher and higher as far as the age group. And when the position came open at Edison, I had no thoughts that I would ever get the job. At that time, I was coaching, select teams and AAU teams, but I thought I'd interview for it. It would just be a good opportunity to interview. I interviewed and I got it. And then I went, holy crap, what a I was just like, be careful what you ask for. But I'm grateful for what I've accomplished, or what I've got, that I'm here. I'm in my 21st year, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And so I'm different path, but I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, Coach Lewis, you also coached with the national team, didn't you?
I did. I did 3 years with USA Basketball. 2014 through 2017.
Wow. How did that opportunity come to be? How did you get that chance?
They contacted me, when I asked them, that was my first question, why me? And so, they said that you came highly recommended. I just think that some people had seen me coaching, some college connections. And, my name, I guess, came up a few times, and it was an awesome experience. Loved every minute of it, watched college ball all day today, and got to see a bunch of players that I coached with USA Basketball. And so it was an awesome, awesome experience.
Did it change the way you coached your high school team?
I don't know if it changed it. I saw a different level. I've always expected a lot out of my girls, whether they, whatever level is on, they're on. But I don't know if it changed it, but it gave me another opportunity to see basketball at a different level. International basketball is just a totally different animal. And so I guess it did in that aspect, because I started running a little bit more pick and rolls and on ball screens and things like that. So, yeah.
So, and just like the boys, the international women have really closed the gap on the Americans. They used to be the Americans who win every year, every major event, but now with France and even the Eastern European women, I think it's always a competitive thing. And also Brazil, I think, are one of those teams.
Absolutely, yeah, very competitive. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Coach Stone, you're another product of McLean High School. For some reason, a lot of coaches that coach at McLean, Coach Jim Smith, Coach Priester, it's a launch pad to successful coaches. Oftentimes when they're there, it's not that easy, because I guess sometimes maybe it's a stereotype, but the demographic maybe is not always conducive towards winning 25 games every year. But you're also a McLean product.
Yeah, my first coaching out of college was at McLean, and I was there for 4 years.
Yeah. I know you played for Deegan, right? At Madison.
I did.
Okay.
Yep, I played for Deegan in the 90s, and then I played college basketball at Manhattan College, and then I went
My sister played there.
No way.
Yeah, she's a Jasper.
Yes.
Her name was She was Julie Brown. She was class of 82 at Robinson. She transferred to GW after 2 years, but she loved it up there.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a city school. It's small
Anyway,
world.
I'm sorry. I'll interrupt.
No, I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
So I was at McLean, and I had a lot of soccer players, and I was very, very young. And so I learned a lot. I was pretty aggressive, and when you come from college basketball and then you go to coach high school, you have a lot of passion. I've calmed way down. And then I moved to Chicago, and I coached a couple of private schools there. And then when Madison opened up, I interviewed, and I took the job there.
Oh, so you moved away and you came back. Was coaching basketball different in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a city private school, and And I didn't get the head coaching job, so I was behind someone who I didn't know, and it was I just want to stay in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about coaching on the women's side, on the girls' side first. I mentioned my sister was a top player, and Coach Lewis, Julie, my sister, you may have met her through the years.
I was trying to, in your email you asked me, and I can't remember her. I think it was, when I was away, probably in school.
Yeah, okay. Well, she was a little bit behind you. She was behind Kathy, just a year or two behind Kathy. But when at Robinson, women were awesome, and the boys really weren't when I was there. And so I remember this because Coach Cindy Waddell was the women's varsity coach, and she very big personality, great coach. But at Robinson, you always want the middle court because it's better court. You got better lighting. And if you're not in the middle court, you're on the outside. You're on the outside court, and it's dark over there. They never sweep the floor, so it's that tartan surface. It's terrible. So Coach McKeag was my coach, and Coach Waddell ran all over him. We never had the middle court. They always had the middle court. They actually won. They were 2-time state champs. So we always felt like the women at Robinson ran all over us. But generally, and we'll start with Coach Klippenstein. What's the current environment? Does the women's game get the proper respect? Do women's coaches get the tools they need to train the girls and to coach the girls?
I think that absolutely depends on the relationship between the head girls coach and the head boys coach and the director of student activities. So you could see differences in different schools, but I have experienced nothing but excellence between the boys coaches and the athletic direct DSAs that I've worked with. Kevin Weirin was my first co-coach at Marshall, and he had just come off being head coach or coach of the year, I think for the region. And here I am new walking in, and, he was so helpful. And Tim Brown was one of his assistants then, and Tim is actually my assistant now. So, it's kind of come full circle, but it's been really good. Now I know that there's some people that maybe don't have that great relationship, but Doug Ewell is my partner now in crime, and we communicate on a regular basis and we team teach. And so, he's Mr. Charisma, he's Mr. Social, but he cares about the girls, and he knows who the players are, and he invites us in. We can come in and watch anytime we want. And varsity and JV are important as well. So being equal, we've got a good situation.
Yeah. Well, Doug is one of my good friends, as you probably know. And I also coach Coach Weirin's summer league teams at Marshall. So when he got the job at Marshall, Coach Fulton, I guess, just left like May or something. And I'd been coaching AAU, and one of the parents came up and said, "Hey, will you coach our summer league team?" I'm like, "I can't coach your summer league team. The varsity coach usually picks that. I just can't start." He said, "We don't have a varsity coach. Will you come coach your summer league?" So I said, "Sure." It was weird just showing up at work and just started coaching kids without really any authority. And it went really well. And then Coach Weirin got the job, and then he said, "Julian, keep doing it. I like what you're doing." And so that's how I met him. So anyway, Coach Lewis, it sounds like part of the challenge here is to have a good relationship with the coach of the men's team, and also we call them athletic directors, because I guess you call them DSAs now. So anyway, how would you answer that in terms of, do you get the tools needed to succeed, and do you guys get the proper respect at Edison?
I agree with Noel 100%. I'm on my third DSA. Actually, if you count Bob McKeag, who came in as an interim, he would be 4.
He was my coach.
Yeah. So, but when I got the job, they told me, the current DSA told me, he said, "Look, you'll never have any kids go play in college. You're not going to win. I just want you to know what you're up against." And so that was the tone that was set. Like, don't expect a lot. You're not going to get a lot. Yeah. And so it made me super aggressive to, fight for my teams all the time. And sometimes I'm probably fighting when I don't need to fight, but I fight anyway. And so, but they have, the boys coach and I, we get along really well. And, he'll give me the main gym and take the auxiliary gym. He's very, we support each other 100%. and our DSA supports us both also. Would I rather have some more 7:30 games than the 5:45 games on double headers? Yeah, I think we're deserving of that. And I think that's a countywide thing that we need to address also. You know, they have this mentality that they think that all the fans are going to get up and walk out because the girls are playing. And I disagree.
Yeah. Yeah. It may actually get the girls more of a crowd if you can have the crowd for the boys game stay after, and you can somehow transition that, right? Is that?
I've had some crowds that were more than the boys had attending.
Oh,
And
so it doesn't, yeah. So you're not doing it for
And
that reason. You just, yeah, you should be, okay. I understand.
right. And I bet these women that are on the panel can say the same thing, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. So how often do they have a boy girl double headers? That doesn't happen, but once a month maybe, or a couple times a season?
We have quite a few. I think we've got maybe 7 or 8 this year that we've got. And we had to fight for them. They didn't want them this year.
Yeah.
The officials want them because the officials are, you know, operating at a you know, because of COVID, they're short. But not, yeah, we've got about 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah. I would think, without knowing, that you want to watch your JV team so you know if you want to move kids up or down, but maybe that's a minor thing. You see them in practice anyway.
We can put the JV squad in front of us. They can be the 4:30 game, you know.
There you go. Yeah.
There's 3 games that night. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, well, Coach Stone, what about you? Madison now has an unbelievable tradition in girls basketball, and it's that girls basketball is interesting in that there are several schools that seem like they've always been good, and Madison is definitely one of them. So, my guess is you probably don't have too many issues over there, but who knows?
No, yeah, we don't. We're super lucky. I actually work in the DSA's office, so that helps. And the boys coach and I mean, he's so, Coach Roller is so knowledgeable. I mean, he's come in to my practice and taught the 1-3-1, and I gave him 20 minutes and he took 45, and we talk a lot of hoops. I mean, he is like an X's and O's guy, and I'm more of a, like, you know, bring the team together. So we get along really well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Coach Kevin pretty well, and I've also been to a couple of his games this year. He was on Weirin's staff when I was in Marshall as well.
Yeah,
So,
you're friend with Coob too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I saw your pictures.
Yeah, I refereed and I coached for so long. So I got out of basketball because my kids don't play basketball, and then I quit refereeing when I had my second of 3. So I kind of went out of the game for a long time. So then when we started these groups, I kind of got back into it a little bit. And then, you know, Doug and all them were saying, hey, you got to come to our game. And so that's how I got kind of back going to games again. So obviously I need to get to some girls games. I haven't been to too many, but I have to say I grew up going to a lot of girls games because my sister was a much better player than I ever was. So, but anyway, Coach, let's talk about the college opportunities. I know because a lot of people who watch us want to hear about that. On the boys' side, it's a struggle for seniors. I guess, you know, the very best players aren't having any problems because they're, you know, the very best, you know, are always going to be wanted. But are you guys on the girls' side seeing? Are they getting extra years of eligibility, which I assume? Does that create a log jam where some of your top performers can't even get Division III opportunities, and I'm sure scholarships are tough? How has COVID and the transfer portal and all the other issues that we deal with affected opportunities at the next level? Coach,
Well, so Tori Martin is a kid that graduated from Westfield that I got to coach, and she went to Mary Washington. COVID hit her senior year and they gave her an extra year. You know, but that's Division III. So there's, you know, a little bit of a difference in what's going to happen Division II and Division I. But she was super excited about it. And so was the coach, because she was a leader on the team. Kind of what's happening now with recruiting with our kids is we've got kids that are looking at different levels, Division I, II, and III, and they're getting more hits for their talent level really for Division II. But they're working really hard, but they're doing a great job being able to send film. And last year they had an easy time sending film because there was a lot of time to go, but there just wasn't much film to use. So the coaches did their best to try and hit them up during the off season when they could go to the exposure events. But even just today, I sent film for 5 games for one of our kids. And it's just, it's, if the kids have time and their families are willing to put it into, they just need to go and contact the coaches and keep sending them material.
Mhm.
And for me, any time that a kid has ever asked me to contact a coach, I do that. And there's a lot of people that are like afraid to call. I said, just call the coach. If the coach can't talk to you, they're going to say, don't, I can't do this. But that's how the recruiting process has worked. And there's some folks out there that'll say that the kids can't really get recruited through their high school coaches. But absolutely, I had a dozen kids in a 5-year period go from Marshall. And I mean, they went Division I, Division II, Division III, and NAIA. And, the last kid that I had was a Jasper. She went the last one at Marshall. So that was, really flattering, really exciting. But, for the kids, I think maybe the hardest part is that they think that the recruiting process is difficult, but I think the staying in is difficult. Once you get in, you've got to really want it. So to me, if they don't really want it, the process is going to kind of, knock some of them off. So they've got to really make that decision to be committed.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Coach. Coach Lewis, what about you? Are you seeing opportunities for the high level players? I know historically Northern Virginia was a place where all colleges recruited because we had such high level girls basketball here. But what are you seeing?
Well, we had, COVID hasn't really hit me too hard because my last class of 2020, 4 of my 5 seniors went off to play college ball. And so they're still playing. Last year I had 1 senior and she was on a fence on whether or not she really wanted to play at the next level. And so we didn't do much recruiting for her. And so I haven't really had a chance to experience recruiting during the pandemic. One of my players did transfer and she went into the portal early and she got picked up early. But it could have been a different story had she gone in a lot later, because I know there were a lot of kids in the portal that did not get picked up. And mainly because there were kids that opted to go their 5th year.
Right.
But, I agree that kids, if you want to play, there are opportunities at the high school, at the public high school level to play at the next level. We have, we've had a lot of kids come through Edison that are playing at the next level currently and in the past. So it can happen, the private schools will say, oh no, you need to be in a private school for this to happen. And I disagree.
That's good marketing on their part.
Yeah, that's right.
They do. We have a kid right now who's in middle school and I haven't seen her yet, but I'm hearing she's like 6'3", 6'4", and all the private schools are after her. And so, my daughter drafted a letter and said, look, this is what we can offer you at the public school level. Edison is an international baccalaureate school.
Oh, it is?
Academically, we can offer things that sometimes the private schools can't offer. And then, you're not a fish in a big pond when you're in the private school. In the public school, you can stand out, you can play and make first team and make all region and make all state. Whereas private, we had a kid that was playing behind Ashley Owusu. She wasn't getting a lot of time. She came back public and then, it took off for her.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks, Coach. Well, Coach Stone, how do you see it? And or are the top players in Northern Virginia still getting Division I opportunities, or is it like the boys' side where you might have 1 or 2 in the whole area go Division I in a particular year?
I think with the girls, it depends on the year, you know what I mean? And it ebbs and flows. I mean, I have 8 seniors this year and 4 of the 8 are playing in college. Only 1 D1. I was a little surprised. I do think COVID got in the way of some of the others. I think that 5th year, I was shocked a little bit with some of mine. But, we played a lot of private schools this year. So I don't know. I guess it ebbs and flows in my mind. I think that we compete just as much in the public schools. We compete in every game, as far as the privates go. We won some, we lost some. But I would tell it, it's hard because I'm always like, I'll give you a free ride to Madison. Come on in.
It's cool.
But yeah, it's free. But like Diane said, like it's a great education, whether you go, I mean, public school or private, but public is, I don't know. I don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how about, one of the biggest issues that you get on the boys' side, and I assume I think Coach Priester told me that it's just almost as bad on the girls' side, is the private schools are bleeding some of the talent away. Now that really did not happen when I played. The best girls wanted to play for the public school. I think there was a team like Holy Names or something like that. It was amazing in DC. But generally in Northern Virginia, you didn't have your top girls wanting to go anywhere because all the teams in Northern Virginia were the best teams in the state. Are the private schools like Paul VI and Flint Hill and the private schools downtown, are they taking the best girls talent as well? You want to go in the same order? You want to go? You've got to volunteer. Coach Stone, why don't you go first on this one?
I was just going to say, I did, like, I would say about 8 years ago, you do have to start like almost recruiting. I mean, you have to start going to the youth league games. You have to show your face. That was never like that in the early 2000s. And you just want to be around so that they know you care, because you've got all these private schools going to all the VYI games, and they're coaching, or they're coaching in the youth leagues, or they have their assistants. So you do have to be around a little bit more. But I mean, they get paid, those private schools get paid a lot more than public school coaches. So I understand that.
Well, but I also understand that there's a lot of public school coaches on the girls' side that actually coach AAU. So in a way, on the boys' side, the AAU programs kind of pressure, from what I heard, the kids to go to private school. But on the girls' side, you guys, I think Coach Priester and Coach Diggin are AAU. I'm sure maybe you guys are as well. Coach Lewis, does that make it a little bit easier to keep the girls in the public schools?
It was. I haven't coached AAU in the last couple of years. COVID was a big deciding factor on that. But a lot of the private schools have their coaches coaching for AAU as well. And so they funnel those kids and they say to them, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be in our school, you need to be in our environment. This is the only way you're going to be seen. And so, we do lose some kids to that, just because, as you said, it's marketing. They tell them this is what you're going to get if you go to a private school. So, you have to fight for them. You have to, like Kirsten said, you go and you let them see your face and you tell them, that you care about them. A lot of my players that are playing in college, they know I've seen them play since 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to go and watch these kids play and let them know that I want them as much as anybody else is telling them that they want them.
Yeah.
And we're coaching for free almost.
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah. You're paying the coach. But, I was going to say, Coach Klippenstein, do you find that it's almost demoralizing? Not only you have to coach and work hard and get a team together and win games, you got to actually recruit kids. Is that kind of demoralizing sometimes?
Well, I just look at it as another competitive level of the sport. So, I'm going to compete at that as well. And so when I first moved to Westfield, I'd been coaching at Marshall. So I coached for the Virginia Vogues that were, mainly based in the Vienna area. And then when I moved out here to Westfield, I started coaching AAU for Chantilly Youth, and I coached 7th grade. And they asked me if I'd coach, they said either 7th or 8th grade. And I said, whatever you need. And then before I knew it, I was coaching 2 teams. And I had 2 of my assistants, so the 3 of us, and we just did like this revolving door, and we had 24 kids and we ran it. And I'll tell you what, it was actually the most fun AAU I'd ever had because we always had enough kids. We were enthusiastic. About a third of them were future Westfield kids. A third were in the other districts, so Centerville and Chantilly kids. And then there was a third that was just, anywhere around the zip code. So we just took it in stride. And those kids right now are freshmen in college or current seniors. So they're really making, headway on those years that we put in, coming through the program. And I also enjoy, we lost to Oakton the other night, but 2 of the kids on the Oakton varsity are kids that I coached when they were in 8th grade.
Hmm.
So maybe more than anything is that the relationships are there. And if people just keep, communicating, kids are going to kind of search around and try and figure out what's the best thing for them. But the ones that I've been able to coach that get to stay in their community love coming up with each other. And then they have that healthy rivalry. So, the CYA and the SYA kids play against each other. And, so Centerville, Chantilly, and us have that kind of rivalry. Then Kirsten and I have a rivalry because we've been coaching against each other for, like 15 years. But it's all in fun. Now, is it demoralizing? I can't see any of it as demoralizing, because if there's a child that doesn't really want to play because they don't like my style, or they don't like, the school or whatever, that's not really a good fit for them. So hopefully they'll just find a good fit and make the most of it.
Well, you're laughing about Coach Stone, your rivalry. Do you guys, are the women coaches, are the coaches on the women's side, because some of them are men, is it as competitive as the men's side? I mean, is there, are you guys friends? Is it good nature rivalries, or is there some, bitter rivalries? The reason why I say this, 30 years ago or so, 25 years ago, when I used to ref, it seems like on the girls' side, it was a little bit, the coaches didn't really talk to each other so much. You had Kenny Farmer, everyone had their own little thing, and I didn't think people got along too well. I'm not sure. I was just a referee. But is there a collegial atmosphere amongst the women coaches?
I've got a Cheryl Buffo story. So Cheryl used to coach at Langley, and back then, Dianne and I all 3 of us here on the panel were coaching against each other regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheryl was in the district, and she is competitive, man. She's like serious. And her teams, I love scouting her teams because those kids would run the plays the way she wanted them. So I could scout and go, oh, they're going to do this and they're going to do that, because they ran them well. For my teams, they can't really scout us as well because we don't necessarily execute quite as clearly.
You don't do anything.
So the first year we go against Buffo, they run we ran a full court. They pressed us. We ran 4-cross press break. It was a disaster. Then the next year we ended out, or the next game, we changed it up and they couldn't do their little thing. And so then we come in the next game and it's the next season and we're stalling because we're ahead. And then the next game, she's kind of ticked off that we're stalling and she wants a shot clock. So we went ahead and went at her, so we ended out still, winning by 20. It says, we'll pick your poison. And but the thing was, everything that I had that I thought was clever, she had a counter. And it just kind of kept going back and forth. And this went for about 4 years. And then one day my dad came to the game and we had just lost to him by about 3 points. And I was kind of ticked off. And he goes, you know what? He says, the best part about this game was that coach, she was really competitive, but she was really cute. And I said, Dad, that's not the point at all. And so I had to give my dad an education on what girls athletics were about. And then I went and introduced her the next year to Cheryl. And he goes, yeah, I like her.
Yeah.
So the rivalry is really fun,
Yeah.
but we can joke with each other in a way that I wish that we hung out more, because it would be good, especially through these times.
Yeah. How about you, Coach Lewis? How do you view your competitors?
I think, and for the first time in the national district, we have all women. I'm trying to remember, all women and one man, I believe, as head coaches. First time in all of my career. But we've always supported each other. If I make it to regionals or whatever, and they've got film, or if they've got a scouting report, they've helped me. And I think that's what it's about. We should be helping each other and cheering each other on and, especially supporting the women. I do believe, and don't take this wrong, Julian, but I do believe that women should be, or females should be coached more. I'd like to see more female coaches. I think they need the positive role model of a female coach.
Yeah. It's really interesting, Coach Lewis, is that many years ago, we had a big push to get women refereeing boys games, which makes sense. If a referee is good enough to do a boys game and that's what she wants to do, it's fine. But I always was like, well, is that what we really want? Don't we want the girls' games to have those role models at the girls' game too? Like, we don't want to deny the women the opportunity to do a boys' game if that's what they want to do. But do we really want to push women away from doing boys' games? I never really bought onto that, even though I wouldn't want to deny a referee that opportunity, because there's women in the NBA, obviously, as well as the WNBA. But I do think those role models are important. So anyway, I digress. So Coach Stone, what about you? Are you getting along with your rivals these days?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've switched districts, so I loved the Liberty people, and now we're in the Concord, and they're fun. But it's funny, off of your story, do you know, one of the years I was at Madison, I just had Kelly Casciuto, who's a really good player, and she was still in the program, and our boys coach left, and my principal came up and he was like, "You got to take the boys job. You got to take the boys job." And I was like, "What? Why would I want that?" And he's like, "You'd be the first. And I'm like, "But it's like a demotion. Like, I've won and I've won and I've won. I don't want the boys job." But to him, it was like, it was this better thing. So I do think that's kind of funny.
See, that was my point also. I'm like, well, is refereeing boys actually better? I mean, when I officiated, to me, it wasn't easier to do a boys game than a girls game. It's different, because sometimes boys will play through contact differently than girls, and the crowd yells at you differently. It's just weird, but the girls game could be very tricky to officiate to me. And I never thought it was easier or harder. I always thought they're just kind of different. The way the tempo of the game is just a little bit different. But anyway, well, let's talk a little bit about Coach Klippenstein. Did I let you in? Oh yeah, you started on that one. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about COVID and lessons learned. Let's start off with, first of all, do you guys think that is the season going to go forward this month? I think after the next 2 weeks we're fine. My kids go to Yorktown, and we haven't played in the last couple of weeks. But do you think things are going to be okay with COVID? And what are some lessons that you've learned through COVID? Like, for example, some of the guys said, they just love the video, the NHTS, whatever it's called. They can watch games all night long. They can watch games on demand. It's so easy to scout now. So how are you seeing COVID affecting your game?
We had we played one game in 30 days.
Really?
We lost 3 games because of COVID. And we start out the season hard, because I said, we've got to take every day like it's our last. So we had 5 games in the first 8 days of the season. And then we played 1 game in a month. And then we came back and we played 4 games in the last 7 days with 2 practices. So this is at least for us, has been very frustrating, because then we had injuries as a result of kids not really being able to go at that speed. And then we're not really in shape anymore, and we're not connected. And, so it struggles, because we had high goals, and we've got to adjust our goals and adjust our drills. And so how is COVID impacting? Well, between that and snow and injuries, we just have to keep treating every day like it's our last. And so the most important lesson, we can't control any of this. All we can control is what we do. So, can we jump rope? Can we work on our memory? Can we draw the plays? Can we watch the film? There's a million things that the kids could still do if they love it enough. And, that's just something that is a whole different way to coach.
Yeah. Coach Lewis, how are you dealing with COVID, and what are some of the things that you've learned through COVID?
Since COVID started, the level of gratitude just to be able to coach and not get our season canceled. Even last year with an abbreviated season, I was grateful for every game that we were able. And I told every official how grateful I was that they were out there. They'll never hear that from me again.
They got cocky.
Sorry, my dogs are growing a little crazy. But We've been fortunate. We have not had any games canceled. We went to Richmond to play a Christmas tournament the week before Christmas. And so we got our tournament in right before everything kind of exploded. And we came back and some of the kids tested positive. And so our first day back at practice, we had like 7 kids. Well, what do you do with 7 kids? You work on footwork and drill work, and you just make the best of it, and we had a really effective practice. And then the next practice we had 9, and then the next practice, so it got better and better. When it snowed, we had online workouts, we just had an assistant coach run online workouts. So I think what this has taught us is how to adapt, how to be grateful. And I appreciate every minute that I get to walk into that gym with those young ladies.
That's a great attitude. And if you ever have to coach 7 girls again, there's a scene in Hoosiers where they only have 7. You could just, do the drills that he did.
Right.
So Coach Stone, what about you? What have you learned in COVID? Anything that you've used to improve, and how are you guys dealing with it this season?
Well, a lot of what the other lady said. Especially quick story about last year is my sister and I coached together. And so we'd go into practice last year where Dianne was nice to the refs. Those girls were like my friends because you hadn't seen anyone. And then they see them. And my sister kept turning to me like, you got to put them in the line. Like, you're being too nice. So it was pretty funny. But like everybody else, we've had 4 games lost. I've had girls with COVID. We've practiced with, less numbers. You just do what you can. We have an assistant who runs workouts. So they just Zoom, he puts up not a Zoom, but like he sends videos and they do them. But we missed so much practice time over the Christmas break. Like Clip said, we only played, I didn't see him for 10 days, and then we had to practice in a game, and then I didn't see him for another 8 days. So it's just been, and then you find yourself at practice yelling at them, and then you have to tone it down because it's almost like you started the season over, coming back from the break. But the kids are so adaptable. That's what I found. I make mine mask in practice, and they don't whine, they don't complain. They're like, okay, whatever's best for the team. It's amazing. It helps me grow as a person to watch how they adapt, because you're constantly feeling bad for them, but they don't feel bad for themselves. So that's kind of what I've gained from that.
Well, why don't we stay with Coach Stone on this? Let's talk a little bit about this season. So I know we've lost some games, unfortunately, and some practice time, but I think you guys have done quite well. I think you lost to, I believe, Paul VI the other night. Is that right?
Yeah.
But generally, tell us a little bit about your team. Seniors, juniors, kind of the breakdown in terms of experience, and what you think about the season so far, and maybe the prospects going forward.
Well, like I said before, I have 8 seniors, but I have had 5 that have been with me since freshman year, and we added one more big from Langley, a transfer from Langley. So we just try to play a lot of private schools, like I said, to see what the competition's out there and go against them. And we've had some wins and some losses, and I don't know what else. I'm not a big talker. Okay.
Yeah, you want your team to do the talking. You don't want to boast. We're not going to win them all. We're just hanging in there. I'm just a humble coach.
We're talented. We're very talented. We're coming off. I've got the Arnold sisters. I've got 2 6'3", 6'2", 6'3" girls. They're all graduating. They're all gone. But this year, it's kind of like we're trying to put stuff in just because they've been with me for so long. And you guys know, you run the same drills and you teach the same skills. But these girls could run practice the way I would run it. There's so many that have been with me for so long. So
with 8 seniors, you might want to take that boy's job.
Yeah. Next year.
Yeah. So Coach Clip, it is easier to say. How about you? I know you've had your downtime this year, which is frustrating. But what do you think about your team? What's kind of your breakdown and experience, and what do you see going forward?
Well, I absolutely love our kids, and the words that keep running through my mind right now is dark horse. I just keep hoping that. So we played 10 games, and we have started our, desired starting lineup twice, and only once did all the 5 players make it through the game. So, like one of our best kids right now, our best rebounder and second best scorer is in a boot. We had concussions. So what is it? Brooke Reed and Emma O'Connor are post forwards, and they're just super rebounders. Sam Etzler and Shreya Sivaram are terrific guards and ball handlers and shooters. And then we've got other kids, Abba Queno, who's going to go to West Point, and she's just athletic as beat all. And, she should just move to New York and be a pickpocket, because she can, steal the ball like quick as can be. And sometimes the referees don't believe her hands are as quick as they are. And then they'll call a foul, and then they'll watch more carefully, and she doesn't get any more foul calls because they're like, oh, she is that fast. So there's a lot of talent, in the mix, and just really, really proud of their leadership. They're the best captains. The kids I have captain, Bella Bruce is on a recruiting trip right now. She's coming back from Wisconsin, and she's a junior, and they speak up now. They talk to each other. They talk to us, and, and there's talent, but we've got to get in shape. We've got to get our skills. We've got to get our chemistry. So we've got to pull it all together. And, we never said that we'd win a championship in January.
Yeah.
It's February. We've got to get things together and then hope that we can stay away from the bug.
It's a tournament game, right? So hopefully
Yeah.
it'll come together for you. Well, Coach Lewis, I looked at your ranking, and I was surprised by your number of wins that you have, that you weren't higher on the Nova Hoops ranking, but maybe that's good. Maybe keep the expectations a little bit low at this point in the year. But what is your team like, and what do you think your prospects are for this year?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with not being ranked. This has been a challenge this year. I got 5 freshmen and 4 sophomores on the team.
On varsity?
On varsity.
Wow.
And so I thought, if we're going to rebuild, we're going to seriously rebuild.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've won some games that we probably shouldn't have won, and we've lost some games that we should have lost. But, our youth shows a lot, and they are challenging to coach. They're a fun group. They want to learn. They've got passion. And so I'm excited for them in like a couple of years. I think they're, I'm going to be able to go back to, like Coach Stone said, and have them run practice. I've been at that spot. I'm not at that spot this year. But it's fun. I mean, what coach doesn't like teaching and rebuilding? You don't have the powerhouse teams every single year. I think it would get boring if you did.
Yeah.
So it's challenging to us as coaches when we have to start back at scratch, and we're teaching everything that we want to teach. And it's been fun. Now, I do believe I'm dyeing my hair a little bit more often than I used to.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give Coach Stone your manual on rebuilding after this year, because you're so happy with it.
I don't know if I would suggest 5 and 4.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Coach Lewis on this one. If there's been some bright prospects that you've seen around the region that you've been really impressed, or in your district that you've been really impressed with this season, not Edison players, but other players.
Oh, absolutely. We played Hayfield Friday night, and they're pretty senior laden, and they've got some talented seniors on that team. We did manage to win it, but they're going to do really well. Lake Braddock has a really good team this year. Woodson teams and well-coached teams. So I do think that there's some great talent in the region this year.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to the tournaments too. Well, Coach Stone, what about you? I know you have a pretty solid, actually very talented team, and you're doing really well. When you look around the region, have you seen some girls that you're impressed with, and some teams as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we played Centerville the other night, and they've completely changed in the past 3 years. I mean, they have a new coach there, and she's really built up some talent. We played Langley. They also, again, were very well coached and some talent. So it's going to be exciting and nerve-wracking.
Yeah. How about you, Coach Clip?
Yeah, well, Oakton Oakton is a funny team because they, I think nobody expected it, but in the cloak of COVID, Crump and Zinzi are clearly the leaders, but the other kids on the team are fulfilling roles and they are just solid and they're humming. I haven't played South Lakes yet, but we've seen them and they have a post player it's really quite remarkable. And she was playing in a game that I guess she got in a little foul trouble, but she came back in the fourth quarter and she scored all 11 of their points to win by 3. But she didn't do that by herself. Each of those kids are playing roles and doing a really nice job. We played Langley. We have played Centerville. They're really strong. For our district, the only team I haven't seen is Chantilly. And so we've got them hopefully in a week barring, weather. But the region is still really loaded. The funny thing is that if we weren't paying attention, because we didn't get a chance to see everybody last year, there's a lot of new names that, have stepped up. And so, it's not as predictable as it was 2 years ago to be able to say, it's these kids that are going to be. So scouting is really much more important.
That is the weird thing about COVID is you just don't, because we were all so isolated, you weren't really paying attention to the rest of the region until it was postseason. So you miss, and you couldn't go to games and you couldn't talk to other people. So like Noel said, people are popping up and you're like, oh, I didn't.
Do you find yourself watching games on demand online to catch up sometimes if you're playing someone like next week?
Well, I do, but it's misleading.
Right. Okay.
You can't really see his speed.
Right. Okay.
It's we thought we had a great scout on Alexandria City, and well, we didn't play for a month either, but their kids are really fast.
Well, how about this? What is girls basketball around the state much different than here? Like, for example, in the Tidewater area, do all the girls go to Princess Anne instead of private schools? Or what is the girls basketball like in other parts of the state? Or is it very similar to the way it is here in most respects? You want to start with that, Coach Clip? Or?
Yeah, I couldn't even say. I see the teams, but the ones I tend to see are the best ones because we go to the state tournament and I go and I watch Dianne and Kirsten play. So they would know better.
How about you, Coach Lewis? What's your is the basketball, the brand of basketball, the way they recruit are not allowed to, or the way they're able to keep kids away from private schools? Is it different in other parts of the state?
Well, Princess Anne is a powerhouse and they're a magnet and kids do want to go to school there. And I'll leave that alone. We played in a Richmond tournament over the winter break, and we did so just because we wanted to see their style of basketball. Very similar to ours. They press the entire game. It's a fast game. And so, we went down and we got a chance to play St. Catherine's. We played Elsie Bird. We played Highland Springs. And so they play, differently than the way we play up here. And that was exactly what the type of competition that we wanted.
Well, that's great. Coach Stone, do you see it the same way or?
I'm kind of like Noel. I don't know. The game is a fast-paced game. Like they do press, they do a lot, but I don't know if they're private. I don't know much about the private school versus the public school. But the coaches have reached out and it seems very similar to what we have up here, but I don't know.
Yeah. Is coaching girls basketball much different than coaching boys basketball? Like, for example, in girls soccer compared to boys soccer on the international level, there's more wing play in the girls game, and they cross the ball more. They use more speed on the outside than the men's game. The game's a little bit different. I don't know if coaching is necessarily different, but the game is played different. Is the girls basketball? Do you see the game as differently? Is coaching girls different than coaching boys? Who wants to take that one?
I teach boys, and when I have conversations with them, or when I have conversations with Doug Ewell, the boys coach, or his assistant coaches, or my assistant, I don't know that we think of it in those terms. I just think that just the generalization that I've always experienced is the girls tend to try and please and listen and break it down and think about it, and the boys think about it, but they seem to already know it, so it looks like they just go faster. But I don't know that I think that they're more aggressive, and our girls, like my girls would, if somebody fell down on the other team, they'd go and help them up. I'm not so sure that I see that happening so often on the other side.
Mhm. Anyone else have Coach Stone or Coach Lewis?
I want to say that I think the game has evolved a little bit in that 15 years ago, on the girls' side especially, it was more of a passing game. And now everybody, just like the boys, want to take you off the dribble.
Oh,
And so the game has evolved in that way. I've got a bunch of guards that, whereas they can take you off the dribble a whole lot better than they can make the next pass. And so, I think that's, I don't know if that's watching too much basketball on TV or, the trainers that are involved with this now. But that seems to be a focus.
Diane, you might have diagnosed one of our problems.
yeah,
And go work on that.
yeah.
Just attack the basket.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, we like to attack the basket, and we're not very good passers. So, we keep working on that. I think we.
How about you, Coach Stone? Because you may have the boys' job over at Madison next year.
No, Coach Roller's doing great.
Yeah, Roller's not leaving ever.
No, he's the man.
Oh.
I think that the girls' game, like Diane said, has just evolved so much. Like if you watch, even the early 2000s, the girls' game was more like Hoosiers, set, screen, and girls have just become more, I don't know if it's more athletic, they're just watching more basketball. The game is just so much faster. And I still think that they still it's more, set screens, run the play, but they can now take you off the dribble, and it just gives it more options.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how about we didn't talk about parents tonight. Now, parents can be a problem for coaches. And it's a lot of times, I think 40 years ago, the expectation the parents had for their girl athletes were probably not as high as the boy athletes. That's not the case anymore. As a matter of fact, the girls have the one-on-one trainers. The parents on the girls' side, when I used to officiate, they were always worse than the parents on the boys' side. You guys spend a lot of your time dealing with parents, and is it a big factor in your coaching?
I think I'm going to answer this quickly, but I think that as a female coach, I found that I get a lot more male parents that think they know more than I do. And so it's a constant conversation of I should be doing this and what I should be doing. Even with the amount of years I've been coaching, it's always the dad's coming to tell me what I should be doing as opposed to. So you do get a little bit of that on the girl side. Whereas when I talk to Roller, he's like, no, I don't ever get that. But I'm lucky right now. I haven't had parents in a while. So it helps, when you're doing well.
Coach Lewis, how do you deal with parents?
Well, I think you have to set the tone early. I have been doing this a while, and so I don't get it as much as I used to get it when I was first coaching. There were the guys who wanted to prove that they knew more than me. Now, even if I make it clear, if you're coaching your daughter from the sideline, your daughter's coming out. If I see her look over, your daughter's coming out. And so you can do all day long. And I tell parents, I say, I'm not saying that what you're telling them is right or wrong. It's just that they can't listen to me, their teammates, and you all at the same time. They just can't. And so, you just have to set the boundaries early. And I think they'll respect you for it.
Yeah, that's great. Coach Clip, how about you?
Yeah, it's just really challenging too, because things that you say or you do in practice when we build a relationship with the kids. I mean, we're spending 20 hours, maybe 30 hours a week with these kids. And so anything the child goes home with and says to the adult doesn't have that same relationship. So it's difficult to build that relationship sort of through somebody else. But it's still like they said, set the tone. And I mean, you just work as hard as you can. And then every now and then you just have to have a difficult conversation. But what I find is that ultimately everybody wants what's best for their children. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, for coaches, we want what's best for all of the children. And so when we can at least convey that one child is not more important to me than the others, I'm trying to work for all of them and it's not going to all be the same. I think that it sort of tones things down a little bit. It's been a little bit different too with COVID because we didn't have fans last year in December. And now at least just the families get to come in. So I think that they're also in a place where they're appreciating the fact that we're going to the front line with the kids as well. I mean, we're right in there in this COVID mess, risking ourselves and trying to lead them. And I feel like, the parents have actually been really positively engaging and appreciative.
Yeah. I think we're also happy that we even have seasons now, and losing two seasons would have been even worse. Cause I know we lost spring season 2 years ago. My kids play soccer and it was terrible. All right. You guys have been great. This is awesome. I thought we covered a lot of ground. Last question. I did a podcast with the officials. I forgot what it's called, but it was a great podcast. Anyway, they wanted me to, next time I talk to coaches, to make sure I get their pet peeves. So does anyone have any pet peeves of officials that you'd like to share? And not personal towards any official, but officiating in general. Is there anything out there that they do and it makes you upset?
The things that I've seen from the officials that I appreciate the most is when I don't understand a call and the official can explain it to me so that they don't think that I'm picking on them. But if I can't coach the kids, if I don't know what they're seeing, and honestly, there are times when I couldn't even make up what they saw. Right. Now, the other night we had a referee that made a mistake and he put his hands up for the shot at the end of the quarter because he was the guy that was going to make that call. And then the kid took the shot after he put his hands up and he counted the basket. And I said, I swear that signal means that the shot is no good now, it won't count. And he goes, yeah, I made a mistake. Well, I just turned to the kids and I looked and I said, he made a mistake and let's not waste any time on this. So we just keep moving forward. And so I appreciate that. I hate that he made the mistake, but and you just keep taking it in stride because the kids, if nothing else, are learning about adversity and resilience and how to overcome.
Yeah. Anyone else? And if there's nothing negative to say, maybe the things that you like to see with officials.
I have one negative. I'm not a big, I let the refs do the refs job. Like that's not my thing. But the hard part for me is, especially with double headers, they ref the female game different than they ref the male game. They won't let females be aggressive. And because, I don't know what it was like in Richmond, but like when we played in that PVI tournament, I mean, they let you go. And when you have athletic girls that can, but if a girl falls down in Fairfax County Public Schools, they blow that whistle every time. Yep. And so for me, the hardest thing is that, like, and especially with the back-to-back games where you're like, you just reffed one game one way and now you're reffing it the other. But I'm like, Noel, I love when the refs will talk to you or they'll be like, oh, I missed that one. Sorry. And you're like, oh, that's all right. I missed lots of things. So I just like the conversation.
Yeah, in the old days of officiating, this is a bad thing, but with the boys, they want to let us play through the contact. And with the girls, they were more likely to tell us to call the contact, which is, you got to try to let the game go, let them play through the contact. And I always felt a little pressure to call all the contact in the girls' game. And yeah. I don't think it makes the game very fun to watch.
No, or to play, because if you watch the game and then you make an adjustment and then you realize that it was right then, but now it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to coach that if the rules are different.
Yeah. How about you, Coach Lewis? Anything that you?
Yeah, I'd like to add that was exactly what I was going to say. And I say to the officials all the time, you won't make that call in a boys' game. And so it's very irritating when I see we press a lot. And so, the game Friday night, by the third quarter, the foul count was 16-3. Mm-hmm. We had 16 fouls called on us. And so I said, look, I know I've got a young team and I know they do foul, but I just find it hard to believe that it's that lopsided. And so they don't let them play when they see us pressing, we get called for every touch, everything. And so I would like to see, the rule book doesn't say girls is one way and boys are one way. The rule book is the rule book.
Good
And
job,
so,
Diane.
yeah, I don't understand that. But
Diane.
same here, when the official comes and talks to me or says he missed a foul, I'm totally okay with that. We're all human and we're all going to make mistakes. And so I do appreciate the officials that talk to you and explain things to you. And I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, definitely think you got to have a referee that has some interpersonal skills and willing to try to work with the coaches. I think a coach, to me, when I coach, not to your guys' level, but I coach, and the coach's biggest fear is your best players getting in foul trouble. So as a referee, you should really try, if you can, just call the obvious. Just call the things that you have to call. If everyone sees it, call it. If you can get away with not calling it, don't call it. I think if you could try that, and then if the game gets more physical, you might have to, start calling a little bit more. But I think that would make the game better. But that's why I haven't ref in 15 years. I could just be critical.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the officials have any feedback for the coaches?
I was just thinking today at the end of the year, and we should have a panel and just have the referees and coaches and just have like a round table and talk about things that make both sides happy.
They did that about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Were you reffing then?
No, I haven't ref since 2005. So,
Oh, okay.
Well,
yeah.
they did a couple things where they invited a few coaches in before the season during their training. And they did like 3 or 4 nights of this. They had different coaches coming in each night, boys and girls.
Yeah.
It was great conversation.
Yeah, there was a time when I think referees really talked about controlling the game, and it was uncomfortable for me because I'm always like, no one's here to watch you ref. It's all about the players and the coaches. And I really think when I listen to referees talk now, they seem to go out of their way to say they want to work with coaches and talk to coaches and stuff. So I think it sounds like it's going in the right direction. But and then I've been to 8 games this year. I don't think I've been to games in years, and I think the officiating has been better than I remember. I think it's actually getting better. So that's a good sign. But
Which games did you go to?
yeah, well, yeah.
Boys games.
Yeah, and I knew the refs. Maybe I'm looking at the bright side, but they seem to be doing a good job. But anyway, you're going to get me in trouble on this podcast.
Well, it's fun to poke fun because many of them do have a sense of humor and can take it.
Exactly. There we go. That was nice. So, well, look, I really love doing this. I'm glad you guys decided to do that, do this, and hopefully we can do more of these and talk about some of the issues that affect the game. I think parents will really like hearing things that you're saying about development and ways to deal with parents and coaches. And the things that you guys go through, the more they know about what coaches go through, the more patient they're going to be with their child's development. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys we can do more of these.
Yep. Keep it up, Julian. Thanks for having us. This is great.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, sure. Thanks again, guys. I enjoyed it.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.